Hi, this is Dan Pone. I am currently taking a class in Health Sciences Applied to Coaching, and this video is for the Module 2 assignment. There'll be three things on this video. There'll be two warm-ups. One is a pre-practice warm-up. The second warm-up is a pre-competition warm-up. And then finally, there'll be a cool down, which is designed for immediately after competition. So that is a post-competition cool down. These programs are very, very important, and they essentially refer to exercises and activities designed to ready the body and mind for exercise, for practice, for competition, and then also, in contrast, to cool down the body, the mind, and the various systems of the body to allow the athlete to recover. So I'm specific to wrestling. I I coach modified wrestling. So my kids are, between 11 and 13 years old. They tend to be new to the sport. There are some with activities and some previous wrestling experience. But generally speaking, they've got a lot to learn, and especially the pre-practice warm-up, it evolves throughout the season. Some of the skills that we might use early on are basic, and part of the warm-up skills towards the end of the season, or even the middle of the season, I should say, are going to be quite a bit more advanced as these kids learn. The point of the warm-up is to prepare them for an effective practice. In terms of body and mind, we're looking at warming up the muscles, we're looking at flexibility, we're looking at increasing the heart rate and the respiratory rate, getting the blood warm, the muscles warm, and generally activating the body, getting it ready for the practice or the competition, whether it should be. The idea is with these warm-ups, we're enhancing performance. We're decreasing the chances of injury. Certainly, injury is always a possibility with a contact sport like wrestling, but we're really trying to reduce that as much as possible. And the warm-up and the cool-down are key for that. So we use dynamic stretching more so in the pre-warm-up. Static stretching might be a little bit more effective after the practice or the competition. But we really want to try to use dynamic stretching beforehand. So we're going to always typically warm up with a low-key cardiovascular warm-up period, 15 minutes or less. That starts to weave in sport-specific stuff as the season goes on, and we do that prior to any sort of stretching. We're just really looking to build the knowledge of the wrestler as the season goes on. So I think I've covered everything offhand. In the assignment that will be submitted with the video link, I've got a little bit more of a description of what I'm doing. I talked about the muscular system being so important in the warm-up in terms of the stretching, the flexibility training. The cardiovascular system is certainly a big part of this. We're getting the blood flowing, we're getting the respiratory rate and the heart rate going. When we do a lot of the sport-specific drills that are also working on cardiovascular and musculoskeletal systems, we're tapping into the neurological system as well. We're working on some balance. We're working on developing some motor memory with a lot of these skills. We're also working on balance. We'll talk a little bit about the cool down, how we're doing a little bit more with the nutritional, hydrational needs of the wrestler. The cool down is going to involve, certainly going to fluids after competition, and some light snacks, typically a little bit more carbohydrate heavy to replenish the energy systems, especially if this is a day of multiple competitions. It's not unheard of now for kids to wrestle 2 to 3 times an evening at the middle school level, but certainly at the varsity level, they may wrestle 5 times. It's not unheard of at all. What else? so the integumentary system is important post-competition and post-practice. So if it's practice, the kids are always being told part of your post-practice routine is to be showering as soon as you can after home. At home. After competition, we have defense wipes, wrestling-specific skin wipes. The idea is to get off as much bacteria as possible because we're always concerned about ringworm, which is a possibility whenever somebody's rolling around down on the floor. We put a lot of time into mat hygiene to decrease the chances of that, but still, we always want to err on the side of caution. So the kids know to be showering immediately when they get home. At this day and age, kids don't really shower at school anymore for obvious reasons. So that's it. So I'm going to go into the first warm-up, first of 2 warm-up programs, and this is a pre-practice warm-up. This will be happening every day before practice, or rather I should say at the beginning of practice, because it is part of practice, and it will evolve as the season goes on. So to prepare the cardiovascular system, the neurological system, and the musculoskeletal systems, we're going to start really with some gentle locomotor activities. The kids are going to be jogging around the wrestling room. I don't have a wrestling room here, so I'm just going to run in place. They're going to be jogging. We're trying not to get kids to sprint around the room because of their age level especially. They get to bumping each other and silly things go on. So they're typically jogging in a forward circle, and then they're going to revert to some backwards running. Okay, so running backwards, always looking over their shoulders. We're going to go into start doing some dynamic stretching and mobility exercises, which still is part of our warm-up. So the kids are going to be doing high knees, okay, lots of high knees. They're going to be doing butt kicks like this, okay, so the high knees are really going to be start working on the gluteal muscles, the butt muscles, and then the butt kicks like this, we're working on hip flexors and knee extensors, trying to stretch out those quads, okay, and those other hip flexors. Then we start moving this. Now this is still the movement portion, but we start moving into some wrestling-specific stuff. So the kids are really doing a side shuffle, okay? And so they're in a stance, typically a square stance. It's for best for the side shuffle. So they're really, in practice, they're going to be going in one direction because I have limited space. I'm going to go side to side. So they're going to be step, slide, step, slide, step with the lead foot, slide the back foot. One of the things I see the most often with kids is crossing their feet. When they're brand new, they cross their feet. Wrestling, we never cross our feet, okay? Because that's when you could, be pushed by an opponent and you're simply going to trip backwards. So there's a lot of cues to step, slide, step, slide, step, slide. No crossing the feet, no crossing the feet. We're sitting down, a low center of gravity, elbows are in, hands are out in front of us, head is up. This is all part of the offensive and defensive wrestling stance. One of the things that I like to do, it helps kids catch on quickly, is when I start calling out kids that are doing the side shuffle and they're not in stance, see how I'm not in my stance? I should be like this, but we got kids that start getting a little tired or maybe a little, they're still learning, they're up tall. We might do, if I catch a couple too, kids coming out of stance, I'll just simply cue stance, stance, and if the kids don't respond and drop down, we'll stop everybody, and everybody will do 10 high jumps. So they'll just squat down, jump way up in the air, jump way up in the air, drop in a stance, jump, drop, drop. Okay, so we're bringing in the sport-specific stuff, which is the stance. We're also doing some strengthening, and certainly, as you can hear by my voice, cardiovascular system is getting worked as well. So, in addition to the side shuffles is usually done about a minute in each direction. What I'll do is I'll shift their direction every 15 seconds or so. So if they're circling around the room like this, I'll tell them outside, and then they'll turn around, and then they'll continue going in the same direction. So they're always going in the same direction, but if you have them turn outside, relative to their body, if they were going to the right, you tell them to face outside, they go to the left. It's a better way to do it. Instead of changing the direction of the whole group, the kids run into each other. So I just tell them inside, outside, inside, outside. That has them spinning around So they're changing the direction of their side shuffle, which is really very effective. And then we do some karaokes, which is really a step forward with the lead leg, you cross in front, step forward with the other leg, cross behind. So there's a little speed and agility. Certainly that's an activity that I find a lot more applicable to football and other things. I have to remind the kids that although we're doing karaoke, we're breaking the cardinal rule of wrestling on your feet, which is never cross your feet, okay? So I'm getting them aware of both what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and it is a good agility exercise. Then we're moving on to dynamic stretching. There are a lot of other movement things that we can evolve through the warm-up, but moving on to the dynamic stretching, I'm going to have my kids work on leg swings. So the leg swings are going to be forward, all right? Leg swings like that. We're trying to keep the knees straight, all right? We can do hands on the hips. We can do hands out the side. What I'm doing here is I'm stretching my hamstrings, but I'm also working on my one-footed balance. As I'm going up, working on one-footed balance. We're also going to be doing a cross, okay, like that. The kids can typically walk around the room as they do it, okay? So again, confined space here, I'm not showing that, but we're walking around the room. We can go across, out to the side, like that, stretching out the inside of the muscles. Coming across, we're stretching the outside hip muscles, the abductors. Coming to the outside, we're stretching the adductors, okay? And we can do backward swings like this. Again, stretching out the hip flexors in the front. So that's some of the dynamic stretches that we're doing in standing. Then I'm moving to lunges, okay, which is really also a strengthening exercise. So the wrestler, I like to have them in their stance. They're going to lunge down, twist. My balance is terrible, I'll admit that. Lunge down, twist. All right, lunge down again, twist. Okay, we're starting to bring in a little bit more of the spine as we're warming up and working on our flexibilities. Now I'm going to go and show the hip heist activities. This is the first one where I'm going to be using the mat behind me. I hope that this is visualized well. But what I'll have the kids do is I'll have them start like in a bear walk position like this. Okay? So they're going to hike the hip out, plant the foot, and the hand comes through. Okay? And we're going both directions. Right like this. Okay? My mat's a little slippery. That's why my control's not the best. Also because I'm quite a bit older than the kids I'm teaching. But a wrestling mat certainly has some grip. That's a very, very, excuse me, effective exercise and activity. Great part of the warm-up. It's you know, teaching components of some of the wrestling moves that we need to either escape or reverse from our opponent when they're in control of us. All right. Let's see. So that hip heist there, I love it because it's doing the hip, it's doing the spine, it's working on shoulder mobility. We're compressing the hands and the wrists. We're getting the wrist movement, wrist joint moving up, warming up. And then I like to move on to now. Granted, when I give these examples, there's 30 more of these things that we really could give. But there's only so much you can do in one warm-up session. And so I do try to rotate the warm-ups on a weekly basis, just small changes. The kids learn more, and we can get to address more of the flexibility and the strengthening issues. I like to move on to some tumbling and mat activities. These continue to focus on a dynamic stretch, many of them. And they continue to work on warming up the muscles, increasing the blood flow, but we're looking at more sport-specific things. So we've got bear walks. Okay, I'm just going to move this mat for the moment. Easier for me to not fall down. But we've got bear walks like this. Okay, a lot of strengthening going on. We've got a crab walk like this, bottom high in the air. So bear walk, I took a friend to a wrestling match once. Person had never seen wrestling before. And the comment afterward was, wow, these wrestlers use every single muscle in their body when they're wrestling. And there really is truth to that. So I try to bring elements of that also into the warm-up. Okay, also in a pre-practice warm-up, we're going to have rolls. So forward rolls and backward rolls. I think I probably can still do a somersault. Okay, but the kids are going to roll on through. I'll tell you, sir, I cannot do a back roll, but the idea is the same. Get a kick through and roll through back to their knees. A lot of times what we'll do is when they do a forward roll, I'll have them do their forward roll and then pop right back up into a stance. Forward roll, right back up into the stance. Not every kid, not every wrestler my age can do a backward roll. Most of them can do a forward roll. If they struggle, we kind of teach them to roll through over a shoulder instead of straight through the head. And as they get good at it, they really can be walking through the room in their stance, do a forward roll, come back up to stance, so on and so forth. So a great part of the warm-up. Duck walks. This is going to be hard for me. Yeah, no. But this is the duck walk. Really right like this. Okay? A lot of strength prep work going on the knees, the hips, the thighs, the joint muscles in the ankle, the joints in the ankles and the knees and the hips are all getting good warm up and some flexibility going on. Penetration steps. One of the keys to wrestling, offensive takedown. In the stance, there's a penetration step forward, drive down onto the knee, step up with the opposite knee, and come in and stay in the stance. That is a penetration step. I'll do that one more time. In the stance, head up, step forward, drive down with the leading knee, other leg steps up, back into the stance. Okay? So the wrestlers, the athletes will do that around the room in a circle, one right after the other. Again, just like some of the other activities, they're going to be having reminders to go right back into their stance. So if they do a penetration step, they stand back up. They shouldn't be standing like me. They should be right into their stance again. Sprawls. Okay, sprawling in place. I like doing a lot of my sprawls with kids jogging in place. We'll blow a whistle. What they'll do is they'll drop down to the sprawl, which is a classic defensive move, and they'll come right back up to their feet, jogging in place like that. Okay? So that's a lot of the tumbling and mat activities. At that point, one of the final things I'd like to close with is spinal flexibility. So we're going to have kids start on their feet, nice and slow, head back and forth. I don't want anybody whipping their head back and forth vigorously, side to side, like this. Okay, circles. Anybody who's watched wrestling or who has wrestled knows fully well that the entire spine is used in this sport, and the spine does absorb as well as deliver a lot of force and a lot of motion. So the more flexible and the stronger the neck, the back muscles, the more effective that wrestler is going to be both offensively and defensively. So we'll do that standing. Then we'll move on to neck bridges down on the mat. Okay, so the neck bridge. Up on the toes, use the hands, roll the neck back and forth, side to side, even some circles. At this age, I like the kids bracing with their hands. I certainly have seen older wrestlers, high school varsity wrestlers, who are a little bit stronger, and they do some neck rolling without hands. But I encourage everybody to have the hands at the ready, and especially with my kids, younger ones, I want them using their hands there as opposed to putting that type of force on their cervical spine, on their neck. And then we finish up with back bridges. Kids can learn to back bridge. They're up on their neck like this, bridging the back, flexible than I am. I'm in my upper 50s, and so this is challenging for me still. So that is conclusion of my pre-practice warm-up for this demonstration, for this project. As I've alluded to, there's a whole lot more that can be done, and there's a whole lot more that is done. You know, I could probably do this for an hour, but the kids at this level are certainly not doing that. They want to move on to technique. They want to move on to live wrestling. But that's just a snippet. That's a snapshot of what we can do. Pre-competition warm-up. So this is warm-up program number 2. Pre-competition. So this is when you're at a wrestling match, a wrestling tournament, and getting ready, readying the body, readying the mind for competition. So timing is so essential. For about 30 minutes before the wrestling it begins, you know, I want the kids to start doing physical activity. They, as a team, do a warm-up program beforehand, but each wrestler then does their own warm-up program. So about a half an hour before they're going to wrestle, I want them getting their physical activity ramped up. So they're going to be looking at, you know, well, I'm just going to move on. I'll come back to that. About 15 minutes before the wrestling, the wrestler really should be kind of having a light sweat. That's how hard they're working. So 15 minutes or so, they're warming up, they're continuing to hydrate, not hydrating too much, but just little sips along the way. It can be water, it can be electrolyte, but just little sips. At that point, I don't want my kids eating too much in the stomach. About 10 minutes before, I want them to be getting their attire ready. Warm-ups are starting to come off. Certainly the bottoms, they take a little more time to get off because pulling the wrestling shoes through, but I'm okay with them keeping their tops on. A couple minutes before, they want to have the headgear secured, snapped in place. So oftentimes the laces on the wrestling shoes need to be taped down or secured with Velcro straps. The officials in our area are not really sticking to that as much, but we know that some teams have been called on that. So my wrestlers are used to making sure if they don't have Velcro straps holding their laces in place, that we wrap a little athletic tape around those laces. Idea is in some competition, having your shoelace come undone and need to be tied can be construed as stalling in the sport of wrestling, which is a penalty. You don't want a stalling call. So 2 to 3 minutes before the match, we're keeping that heart rate up. We're bouncing around. This is what I always love to do. Bouncing, bouncing. My hips are moving back and forth. My arms are going, you know, cross arms like that, bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. Just trying to keep the heart rate going. Keep the body warm. Another thing is, and this really makes a difference with you know 12 and 13-year-olds. If your opponent sees you before the match, a couple minutes to go, serious, moving back and forth, preparing yourself, there is a little intimidation factor. And while intimidating the opponent is not the main focus, I'm really trying to teach my wrestlers, there's something to be said about knowing your opponent is coming out prepared. Okay? That also helps our wrestlers. They know they're going out to the mat prepared. So that's key. So we're just talking 2 to 3 minutes before the match. They might practice their stance again, all right, some side shuffles. They might find a partner and work on some hand fighting, you know, underhooks, overhooks, kind of pushing, pulling, snapping, okay? And then they're ready to go. So let's see, some of my activities for increasing, now I mentioned that 30 minutes before and up to about 15 minutes before the match, they're working on getting everything going, breaking a little bit of a sweat. So what we might be looking at there is, for that 15 minutes, some light jogging in place. They certainly can go out in the hallway and some light jogging back and forth. I do not promote sprinting very often in wrestling because wrestling shoes are designed for grip and for mobility. There's not a lot of cushioning underneath there. You get kids running long distances and sprinting in wrestling shoes, there's too much bony impact, okay? And so we can hurt our feet that way. So, but light jogging is fine. Jumping jacks, okay? 1 or 2 squat thrusts, okay? Some people call them burpees. All right, just a couple. I don't want to burn too much energy, so just one or two or three of those. Bouncing out in and out of bouncing around. I've talked about the side shuffles. One or two forward rolls to make sure the spine feels good and flexible. Always a great idea. Penetration steps we referred to, but I will have my kids say, hey, one or two penetration steps. Get a partner. You don't have to take your partner down. Just shoot in deep. You know, make a window, clear your partner's arms out, do your level change, and shoot in. Great part of this pre-competition warm-up. And just right towards the end, when we really want to make sure everything's going, there might be a couple of fast sprints in place. One or two sprawls. Again, not a ton. I don't want to suck up all their energy levels. I don't want to fatigue them too much. Just enough to work on the speed. Just enough to make sure they're warm. And throughout the process, our flexibility, pre-match, pre-competition, we're not doing a lot of static stretching. Just some dynamic stuff. Okay, some arm swings, like that. Okay. Again, the wrists moving, the hands and the wrists moving. There might be a couple of neck rolls. There might be some cross crawls here. Cross crawls, raising the knee, twisting the torso, touching it with the opposite hand. And that really is pretty much the pre-competition warm-up. Again, it's 15 minutes of reasonable effort to get your respiratory rate going and get your blood flow going. Helps you with the mental game. We work on a couple sprawls, couple penetration steps. We're starting to bring in some of the neuromuscular activities. You know, we're practicing technique. But again, it's just to ready yourself for competition. Competition is when the real exertion comes. Okay? So the point is to get the wrestler warm, get their heart rate up a bit, but not to achieve exhaustion. What I like to tell kids is if you're going to do a 100-yard dash, are you gonna stand at the start line with your heart going 60 beats a minute, 70 beats a minute? No, you're going to be warming up. You're going to be doing some quick sprints. You want your heart going at 100, 120 beats a minute, okay? Because you're about to do a 100-yard dash. In the sport of wrestling, there is no easy time. You hit the mat, period one, wrestling hard, okay? If you got an opponent who wants to take you down, you've got to be ready to go. So this preparation part before competition is huge. And I would like to close this with the final portion of this assignment. This is a cool down activity. This cool down is specific to post-competition wrestling. Okay? They come off the mat. There's usually a lot of emotions involved. They might be elated if they won. They might be heartbroken and really down if they lost. Not always, but often kids at this age are. So what I'm promoting is a slow walk. Okay? Slow walk in the hand back and forth. If you're sucking wind, your hands can be up on your head like this. Allows for more lung expansion, facilitating the respiratory system. Oftentimes, this is also being done in the middle of the match. So say, for example, if you've got blood time or an injury time, or sometimes the officials and the table help are not sure about the score, there might be a little time. So my kids, in their match, they're continuing to stay warm. They're loose. Loosey-goosey, I like to say. Arms swinging. So this is the same as post-competition cool down, a slow walk. We're focusing on getting our respiratory rate back under control. So breathing might be in through the nose, out through the mouth. Nice and easy, nice and slow. Oftentimes they come off the mat gasping. So I'm trying to get them to go to maybe a 3-4 second inhale. In through the nose. 4 or 5 second exhale. Okay, so this is going on for 2 or 3 minutes after the match. In through the nose, out through the mouth, pacing back and forth. Arm swings across the chest. Okay, couple neck rolls, always a good idea. You know, bringing out the hands. Okay, self-assessment. Okay, wrestlers come off bumped and bruised. A little self-assessment. Okay, are my elbows hurting me? Are my hands, my wrists hurting? Are my shoulder okay? You You know, a couple cross crawls, my hips, my legs okay. Okay, just assessing the body, and at the same time allowing yourself to cool down. Huge in this sport is taking a look at the skin, the integumentary system. We have wipes that the kids can use to wipe their skin down to get excess bacteria off. They certainly can, at the very least, take a towel and wipe off the excess sweat. Chances are they've got their opponent's sweat on them too. So we go right to treating the skin. Again, at this level especially, kids are not showering in schools anymore for obvious reasons that all of us in education understand. So they're always being told and informed, as well as their parents, what's the first thing you do when you get home? Shower, coach. Okay, so we're looking at the integumentary system, trying to keep their skin healthy. And also is a rehydration. After post-competition program, the cool down period also involves rehydration. At least a full bottle of water. You don't need to chug it, just take it in sips. It can be Gatorade, it can be Powerade. Moms and dads are great about bringing this type of stuff. You know, Joey's got a Gatorade. You know, we bring apples and things like that. We always have water on hand, so a little hydration. If it's a long, long day of wrestling, there's certainly some light snacks involved. If you know you're wrestling in the next hour, I don't want you eating 3 peanut butter jelly sandwiches. No, but a light snack, an energy bar, that hydration is huge. And really, that's about it. That's an adequate cool down period. I want to just cover the basics with my cool down. Again, these are young kids. They're mentally involved with this sport. It's very emotional. I personally have a policy of I speak to every one of my wrestlers after every match. Most of them, I can talk to them for a few minutes immediately after. If I can't, because I got to run coach another kid, I'm going to go back and talk to that wrestler. I'm very much a cooperative type coach in that regard. How did things go? What did you feel good about? What do you think that maybe you didn't do as well as you wanted to do? We have those conversations. And it lets the kids know, as part of this cool down process, that their coach has got their back. But they all get it, so there's no favorites. The kids all get a bit of my coaching as part of their cool down, and that's kind of their mental and emotional coaching as well. So that is the conclusion of this video. I'm going to go ahead and shut it off. I thank you for your patience. I hope I didn't get too over verbial with this, and thanks for the opportunity.